as Eli Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by Tyree.
Welcome to Catch the Moment podcast. I am your host, David Tyree, back for another exciting experience. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is a day like no other. I'm joined by my friend, a dynamic player, human being, and even more, a world changer. Reid is in the house giving me this exclusive. What's good, family?
What's up, man?
Listen, this is, number one, I want to thank you for availing your time. I know everyone in the world has been looking to get your voice on your experience. I'm not going to jump right into that. We're going to kind of start off a little soft here. You know, one of the things I like to ask every guest on Catch the Moment is, you know, where were you when you saw the helmet catch, right? You know, we're both former athletes. You know, I'll talk about my moment, but there's always more than just a moment. There's always a little cool story. So tell me where you were, what were your thoughts, and if there was any story.
Man, I remember very vividly, actually.
Okay.
So I'm watching the Super Bowl, and it's the Patriots' undefeated season, right? Like, you know, Tom Brady doing this thing. Like,
absolutely.
This is Tom Brady on his ascent to being Tom Brady, right? Undefeated. I'm like, yo, they really going to do this thing, right? Like, the Patriots are – and honestly, you know, I grew up in Louisiana. I'm a Saints fan. I'm kind of like hating on Tom Brady. I'm like, golly, he really going to do it, all right? And then you make this catch, and I'm like, oh, here we go. now we're talking.
No doubt.
It's getting exciting now.
Yeah.
And then, because y'all were 8-8 that year, right? Like
that was the 10-6 year.
Okay.
The other team, the Victor Cruz team, was 9-7 going into the playoffs. But we were definitely big underdogs.
Big underdogs. I remember that being like, this was supposed to be a mop. Like, it was going to be
17-point underdogs.
Yeah. And I was like, you made that catch. I'm like, hey, now we're talking. Because I'm hating, right? Like, I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it done. I want the Saints to win, right?
No question.
You make the catch. I'm like, man, they might have something here, right? And then y'all win the game. I'm excited now. Like,
it's fantastic, bro.
Made a game out of it. So that was, I mean, you one of the great moments in football history. Like, for real. I mean, that would have been the only undefeated season ever.
Yeah.
And congratulations.
Like, in modern day, you know, the Dolphins fans, they kind of. I know there's a ritual that the Dolphins, the 17-0, I think Dolphins, they like cheer up every year to celebrate their undefeated season with Don Shula. But so I get a lot of praise from the Dolphins for keeping the only undefeated team. But like obviously, you know, this whole theme is really about process and journey. And when I think about a person with a moment, and you know. And I'm not, you know, like, I'm like, man, Eric, I actually know you over the last few years. I've come into a dynamic relationship with you. I've seen you evolve, transition out to the National Football League. And when I'm looking back at your career and your experience, not your career, not just aside from the protests, it was complicated, bro. I was like, man, this everything was complicated. Meaning like, so tell me what you're, I know you're a few years away from playing in a game. I know you had aspirations up until recently, and we can get into what your thoughts have been. But what was your thoughts as you're kind of rounding the corner, moving forward with new interests? What is your thoughts about your career? I could tell you some things that I think, but 7 seasons, first-round draft pick, and you did some things. You accomplished some significant things. What's your thoughts around your career?
I think my career on the field. Had some adversity, right? I think my first 5 years, I had 4 head coaches. So it's hard for any team to get in a groove under those circumstances. We faced a lot of adversity as a team in that aspect with the 49ers transitioning through all these coaches, having to learn new playbooks every year. Yep. But, you know, that's kind of one of the things that I prided myself on, right? Like being a student of the game, leading the team, not very much in a vocal manner. I wasn't the guy like in the middle of the huddle all the time.
Sure.
But I took a lot of pride in making sure that the guys knew what was going on, right?
Excellent.
Making the right checks, making sure the guys were lined up. And so I felt that responsibility as a player. And honestly, we had some success, and I'm very happy with that because I know that was my role, right?
No doubt.
There's plays where we got Matt Schwab benched because they did a Z motion, and I checked the trap. We were playing cover 2, but I trapped the corner, and we got a pick 6. And that's like one of the highlights of my career, and that really speaks to my career because, you know, in a way, I made that play happen, and nobody knows it, right?
That's dope.
Playing the position, playing safety, it's cat and mouse. I remember one of the other highlights. Man, you doing it already. We got 30 seconds in. I'm like remembering all my favorite moments.
I need this because, you have this dynamic, in my personal opinion, uncelebrated NFL career. Meaning, like, all the talk has been around you and Colin and protest, but you actually really made significant contributions. And we're still in position. We'll get to your Carolina experience a little later, but yeah, man, give me some more sauce on the field.
Man, one of the coolest moments in my career, playing against Peyton Manning with the Denver Broncos, and he broke a record on us, which again that hurt me, right? Because I'm that type of competitor. Like, I know you're good, but you're not gonna break a record on me. Like, I'm not gonna be the guy. You know what I mean?
And which record? He broke a lot of records.
I think it was the 50 touchdowns.
Yep.
I think it was most touchdowns in the season, and we just happened to be that team that
rolled up on Peyton. Yeah, I got you.
So one of the cool moments where I realized, like, you know what, he is legit. I remember he was looking dead at me, right? And we're both playing these double coverages, right? He makes a lot of checks. He says Omaha 1,000 times before the play. I'm trying to figure out what I want to check. And literally, David, I'm telling you, I take one step to the right, and he starts going crazy. I'm like, does he know? And he snaps, and he knew. And I'm like, he's for real, for real. And so I had a whole different level of respect, right? Because it's like,
this dude is
he's really, really real. Like,
the students of the game, the deep detail that it takes to execute at that high level is really what you're talking about.
One step. Like, I took one step over, and he checked the play, and I mean, it was a scoring play. I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what did I do wrong?
Hey, man, that's the eagle eye. When you're talking about, it's not an accident when you're talking about the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys and some of these super duper, like there's a few people that are in a different stratosphere, the Aaron Rodgers of the world at that position. But, I looked at that. The 4 head coaches in 5 years, most players can't sustain that kind of volatility. And I think you had every reason to it. And you also had some challenges with, and I know it was a little bit of a conversation with concussions early on. Tell me how that was, the mental health conversation. It has to be a real conversation. So tell me how you endured that and got through that and what your mental makeup was.
It is a real thing because I came into the league on fire. I mean, my first game I picked off Aaron Rodgers. My second game I picked off Russell Wilson.
Man, that's a nice start.
It was. I came in hot. And then in that same game against Seattle, I made a big hit across the middle, and I just got concussed. And it was just a normal hit. I mean, from what I remember, it was all shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what triggered the concussion. It was very little head contact. So I to this day, I don't know. But I was concussed for real. And then I came back and went up with. All right, so
you walk back into.
You're right. So I'm a big safety, right? Like, playing weights 215, 217 pounds in college, I could hit anything. I was a linebacker playing safety in college.
Facts.
We played the Carolina Panthers and Tolbert. You remember the big,
the running back,
the big stocky fullback, Tolbert. I thought I was gonna catch him slipping, but he caught me slipping.
Hey, these grown men out here, bro. It's so grown.
265 running, and look, I thought I was gonna get him. He got me.
And he was a fullback running back. I mean, they gave him carries. He was a run the ball fullback.
And it was one of those hits that I loved. It was right when he was gonna catch the ball. I didn't think he knew I was coming. Man, look.
Felt that.
The physics didn't work out for your boy. 265 versus 215.
We gotta respect folk. We gotta respect the process. But that's what allowed men like yourself, myself, and of course the elite. It was that kind of competition. It was that kind of like, wow, I'm gonna dominate or be dominated. That made this thing so special. So and like boom. So I'm going to fast forward, because what I thought to be amazing, I wasn't sure initially about the timeline of the protests, and what was your relationship with Colin up to this point? And I know it was the last preseason game of that. I believe it was the 2016 season that you guys actually took the kneel, but Colin had already been sitting down. So tell me the nature of your relationship and how that evolved into that moment.
Right. So the dynamics of our relationship started in the weight room, right? Because as you know, offense and defensive players really don't spend that much time together on the field. I mean, we're oftentimes on opposite sides of the field, even when you practice. So our relationship really sparked in the weight room. We both got there early. We were, gym rats.
Yeah.
We're really competitive in the weight room. And then he started sitting during the anthem. And that's when people really started noticing, right? And so I'm like, this is my guy. I'm just going to say what's up. Like, hey, man, what's going on? Just chopped it up with him.
Sure.
And it was that week. It was versus the San Diego Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
I went to his hotel room before the meetings we had in San Diego, and we just hung out. And he talked about some stuff that he was seeing in the community, things that were happening. I was like, hey, man, I agree. Like, I mean, I'm seeing this stuff too. I remember, I think it was the summer prior, a man named Alton Sterling was killed in Baton Rouge, and that hurt me. It touched really close to home, and the reason being because it happened at a gas station on Gardier Lane in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Gardier Lane is a street that my parents had their first house on. I was born into that house on Gardier Lane.
Whoa.
Gardier Lane was a street that my dad drove for 30 years to get to work at LSU. So in my mind, that could have very easily been my dad stopping at the gas station and wound up getting killed by police officers, right? And I'm not talking about any other circumstances, whatever was going on. I'm just saying that could have been my dad, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I felt like I needed to do something, right?
Sure.
As an athlete, you're always taught to be a role model, to be a leader, to be accountable, to do the right thing, right?
Sure.
And so I'm like, man, I have this opportunity as a professional athlete to speak up. And so
Absolutely.
I wanted to do that. So after talking to Colin, I was like, hey, man, you're catching some backlash for sitting, right? They're saying it's disrespectful. I'm like, I want to help you, but I want to do it in a way that's not considered disrespectful.
Sure.
And so we just thought on it. It was actually my idea to take a knee. After thinking, we were like, I told him I don't think taking a knee has ever been seen as disrespectful. I just could not think of a situation when it was ever disrespectful. So
this is mind blowing to me. So it was your idea. So y'all having this conversation, you suggested it. This is the most monumental civil. When you talk about social justice, social reform, which is a common conversation now, you guys sparked it. So how does that get missed?
I don't know. Well, I think it's this whole thing with the media, right? People are going to tell what they want to tell. They're going to paint the picture they want to paint. So really, that was the thought, was how to be more respectful of the people that felt disrespected.
Absolutely.
So we're like, I think this could be good. Let's do this knee. We ended up having a guy. His name is slipping my mind at the time, but he was a retired Seattle Seahawk. He was in the military.
Is that Nate Boyer?
Nate Boyer, yes.
Okay.
Yes, thanks for the reminder.
Because that's who I saw is the one who is, let's just say, credited for informing Colin. Yeah. Like, so is there a timeline thing missing here?
There is a timeline because the very same day, it just so happened that he was in town, and he came to the hotel, and we're like, hey man, let's run this by you. I mean, you're in the military, right? Boom. I come from a line of service, right? My mom served, all of my uncles served. Like I have a lot of family members who serve.
Blessings to you.
So we were like, hey man, let's run this by you. What do you think about us kneeling? And he was like, you know what? I don't think that I would do it, but I don't see why that would be an issue.
Sure.
So he kind of agreed with it. He did agree with us. And so, the next day, now we're at Seattle. Not Seattle, San Diego. And I remember, I was like, because we knew we didn't go into this blindly. We didn't go into this naively. We knew. Colin was already getting backlash for it. Right?
And I recall.
And so I'm thinking, I'm stepping into this thing, and it's with a goal in mind. I wanted to do what I felt was right at the time.
Sure.
I wanted to. If you watch that very first interview I had, if you can dig it up, I don't know where it is. The answer to the question was, hey, we just want to reopen the door to the conversation. We just want to get people talking about what's happening right now, right? People are dying at traffic stops, and we just think that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so we walk out on the field, and we take a knee.
Absolutely.
And it felt right. I felt like I did what I thought was right in the moment, right?
Man, say less, man. You guys are responsible for change. So that's for me, I'm a man that has massive courage and conviction. Now, I've stuck my foot out for the things that I believe over a decade ago with traditional marriage, and I got my little Christian mind. I would even say somewhat naively, like meaning like what I knew I was standing on the side of something right? It was my opinion, it was my platform, but I knew that there was some risk, but
very real risk.
Real risk. And I think from a standpoint of where you guys were, you kind of approached it the same way, knowing that what you were doing was right. And that's powerful. Right. That's super duper powerful. So go ahead, continue.
Well, and really, that's the reason I gave you the interview, Dave.
Yeah.
I know you've been through that, right? Yeah. You know what it feels like to do what you think is right, what you feel is right. Like you're honestly in pursuit of what is right and what's good.
Absolutely.
And some people just don't agree, right? Yeah. And so yeah, man, that was the first time I took a knee, and then it went really all kind of ways after that, right?
Oh man, and I so of course I didn't know you at that time. Of course, working I was working for the Giants at the time, and the ripple effect of that moment resounded throughout the National Football League. It's only a few weeks later till our president at the time, Donald Trump, the ultimate amplifier of all things divisive, has his thoughts, and now we're at a national debate. But ultimately, it was so much that came, and I wanted to be clear, what was your motivation? Me and you we had some offline conversations, and you said it was like, this is wrong. But, it seemed like, and everybody has different motivations. When I look at if I go to your Wikipedia page, it's all about your career as an athlete and not about the moment that you were with Colin in this moment of activism. You go to Collins, it's activists. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always enamored of how two people can share. Now, trust me, he was the forerunner. Oh, yeah, yes. And we're not trying to, there's Batman and Robin, but at least Robin, he's had his little bit of shine. I mean, he's recognized for his heroism, right? So what was your motivation? I think Colin's motivation, I think you two I'm sure you're still a great relationship. But what was your motivation, and what are you proud of that experience, and what are you looking to do moving forward?
Well, my motivation, as I mentioned, was I was doing what I felt was right. At the time, I thought that it was something that I could do for God, right? I had based it off of a scripture, be a voice to the voiceless, a father to the fatherless, right?
Excellent.
And I thought it was an opportunity that I could be a voice to people who weren't being heard, people who were dying, who would have these encounters with police officers and they would get covered up.
Yep.
And they just didn't have a voice.
It's true.
And so I'm like, this is the biggest platform in America, right? It's football. I've been told every day of my athletic career to be a leader, to be a role model, to be responsible. I'm like, this is my opportunity to do all those things that have been instilled with me, right?
Yeah.
Little did I know at the time they didn't want to hear that part.
No.
But yeah, that was the genesis of why I had made the decision to protest.
It was powerful. Like I said, our offline conversations, you came at it with a heart for God. I mean, like your motivations came from understanding that God hates oppression. Yeah. So, it's always been like for me, I've understood these moments, and I think me and you and we had a good conversation about, how I can only live for so many causes, right? Like we can lend our platform, our influence to so many things, but I can only genuinely live for one cause. And I've kind of committed my cause to the kingdom. And, and I think that I have a voice to speak to many particular issues, but I was so thrilled to understand that your motives were pure. I don't know Colin, I applaud him. I mean, there's, I think the only thing that, and I shared this with you as well, the only thing that was like rough for me is it's a mixed bag and it's muddy waters everywhere. And it's like NFL players, right? We get typecasted. Cops will be typecasted. There's evil everywhere. Yeah. And I remember his Fidel Castro shirt, and I'm like, there's another spirit going on there. Yeah. Has nothing to do with it as a human, because I don't know him as a human. But when you're coming from a bitter place versus a place of justice and peace and mercy, there's two separate things. So it was great to meet you. Like, man, you know what? At least he got into this knowing that there was a cost, and knowing that my heart is right and desired to be a voice for the oppressed, man. So you've always, from the moment I got a chance to meet you, it's been amazing. So kind of like just levying us. Let's move forward and say, okay, Colin never sees the field again. You're at least fortunate. You experience all kinds of backlash, but you're at least fortunate to continue to play the game. What was that like? Watching your close friend be blackballed, persecuted, but also having an experience that's kind of like, okay, this how has this affected my career? I know you're thinking about this, even though you're still on the roster.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers. And how much time you got?
Listen, man, we here. This is important.
So you made the comment of when the president lended his thoughts to the situation.
Sure.
He called us SOBs, all right?
He sure did.
That's the language he chose to use, and I think it really took off after that, right? Mm-hmm. We started getting attacked from all angles, right? We now have owners who don't want to see the protests happen anymore. Correct. Because the president of the United States is threatening them with taxes or something, yep. Whatever it was. People, I'm getting messages on social media from college friends and fans are like, man, we don't know what happened to you. I'm like, hey, man, all I said was y'all should probably stop killing people. Like I don't know how
is that too much to ask? Yeah.
And then, we took this deep dive into American history about how to respect the flag, because everybody was saying that we were disrespecting the flag, right? And so we stumbled upon the original flag code, which was that the flag should always be flown high and free. I'm like, dang, the NFL dragged that thing across the field every Sunday, like all over. It's not supposed to touch the ground.
Wow.
But
week in and week out.
Week in and week out. It's also, not supposed to be used in the marketplace, right? It's really supposed to be like an idol, the way they design this thing. But it's not supposed to be used on apparel. It's not supposed to be used like in swimsuits. But so we actually sell the flag in America, and it's like completely contrary to what the original flag code is.
We a bunch of mammon, materialistic greed hounds.
That's what it is. And so, I honestly felt some type of way. I'm like, we're disrespecting the flag, but y'all don't stop selling concessions. Mm-hmm. When y'all, it is what it is. So that happened. Now that it became not us protesting oppression. It became us versus the NFL, and it was like, how do we get here?
How did we get here?
I remember we played Washington, and Colin was no longer on the team at this point. And, man, they really did not want to see us protest in the nation's capital. I mean, we had a team meeting about it, and they convinced a lot of guys not to do it. And, look, I can say with a clear conscience, I never pressured anybody to protest.
Excellent. It has to be personal. It needs to be personal conviction.
I'm doing this for my own reasons,
excellent.
Right? And so, yeah, I know I'm kind of rambling
take
here,
your time. Listen, bro, this is so. I'm gonna tell you why it's so important, because I think when we find ourselves in dangerous territory, number one, we don't understand people's motives and objectives. When you have the right motive and objective, then I think you can lend on a clear conscience, because you can do the right thing. I say, listen, there's only one way to really get things right. Right motives, right execution, right? You can have wrong motives, right execution, and it's still impure.
So I'll be honest. Look, I went into this thing pure heart.
Excellent.
Right? But then, the president comes in, the NFL comes in, and now not so pure, right? Now I'm angry.
There we go.
Now, I want to fight back, right? Like, y'all been calling me every name under the sun,
yep.
Calling my character into question. I'm like, little do you know, like, I'm trying to be the best person I can be, and y'all are trying to railroad my career because of it.
Yeah.
Like literally.
But talk about that and speak to what you really went through, psychologically. I mean, like, was there fear? Was there crying nights? Was there talking to mom nights? How did you dig your way out of that?
Man, I have this fire inside of me, right? Mm-hmm. And it was the reason I did this was for God. And so there was not a single person on this earth that was going to tell me that I was wrong, because I knew why I was doing this, right? Did I say everything the best way possible? Probably not.
No.
Did I act in the best way every day? Absolutely not. But I knew why I started it.
Excellent.
And so there was nothing you could tell me otherwise, right?
Absolutely.
You couldn't tell me that people were dying at the hands of oppression. Like, you could not talk me out of that.
No, it's right there, and obviously we're still seeing recurring issues, right? And that's my thing as a Christian. I know that I can't turn a blind eye, to oppression. Bottom line, I can't do that. It's inconsiderate. It's insincere, But I also can't take up a cause that people ask me about Black Lives Matter. Well, we know that Black Lives Matter unequivocally. But within that movement, there's some other things that are going on that I personally just can't get all on board with that particular movement. I can be on board with advocating for the oppressed, advocating for my personal community, but you guys did it in such a transformational way, but it came at a cost. So, walk me through that tail end, because I'm looking at your first season in the National Football League, you were delivering the goods. I don't know if you're playing free safety that year, but I know you had 4 picks.
It was kind of both.
Both.
Yeah.
And but then your last season, you have your best statistical season. I know it was a strong safety, but 130 tackles. Mm-hmm. You get on with Carolina after a long free agency, a very long free agency. Tell me about how your visits went. Cincinnati was one. Mm-hmm. Probably a wild experience.
It was. So I remember going into that offseason, my first time in free agency. I'm a first-round pick. Been playing at a high level, have a Pro Bowl under my belt, NFC Championship appearance, but I don't get picked up in free agency, and so it's a very interesting time for me. And I'm thinking back. This is the
moment. This is the moment we out here waiting for. And you talking about. I think you said Landon Collins.
Landon Collins, I think he signed for $84 million or something.
Landon came from New York, and I remember him.
I'm very happy. I went to high school with Landon, so I'm like, oh,
that's dope.
Snap, we about to do this thing.
Big respect, LC. I still love it.
Yeah, Tyree. I went to college with Tyree, so these are guys that I know I have a relationship with. And I'm
Absolutely.
like, hey, y'all set the market. I'm coming right behind you. You know what I mean? And so, I after a long off season, I get called up by Cincinnati. They fly me out on the one-way ticket. So all signs are great. One-way ticket, they're not sending me back home.
Nice.
I get in the building, the meetings with the coaches go great. They're telling me all the stuff on here. Eric, obviously we love what kind of player you are. We think you will fit in well here. We run the scheme that works best for you.
Nice.
They start installing their plays. And
They're loving you up.
They loving me up, and I'm feeling great. I'm like, this free agency is over. And as you know, whenever the team starts giving you plays, that's a serious step, because
Absolutely.
It's their plays. You don't just give those out to people who we're bound by the rules of the team. If you lose your playbook, if you leave it in the hotel, they're going to find you $20,000-$30,000, right?
Cash rules.
So they're just not out here giving plays out, right?
No.
So all indicators are saying I'm getting signed. I'm trying not to pull my phone out and text my agent like, hey, what they talking about? You know what I mean? Like, we getting plays. What are they talking about? And so it's going great, and then they say, we want you to speak with the owner.
Sure.
So I go into his office. We have the pleasantries or whatever, and we start talking, and then he starts asking me veiled questions about the protest, and did I know this? Would I do that? And I'm like, hey, man, look, I'm just trying to see see things that are wrong get corrected in this country. I was like, if those things start to happen, then I won't feel the need to protest, right?
Sure.
And that was my response. And so after that meeting, I go back, I see Marvin Lewis, I see all the coaches and stuff, and it's still going great.
Sure.
And then I remember very vividly where I'm sitting with the DB coach. He's on the drawing board, on the dry erase board. And one of the assistants comes in and say, Eric, get your stuff. I'm going to take you to the airport. And me and the coach are like, what? He's in the middle of giving me plays.
Wow.
And so they send me home. I actually filed a suit against the Cincinnati Bengals because of this, right? Stating discriminatory hiring practices, because they were giving me their plays. They had bought me a one-way ticket. All the indications were saying that I was going to get signed by this team.
100%.
And after my meeting with the owner, it flipped 180 degrees, and they sent me home. And the outcome of that case was that I proved the facts of my case, that the Cincinnati Bengals displayed discriminatory hiring practices. Wow. However, the CBA does not protect the players against said discriminatory hiring practices. However. Hey, so I was surprised, but also at the same time not surprised. I was like, of course. So it makes you question the CBA, right? Like,
sure.
Like, what are we really doing here? But then it also made a lot of sense of why the things that you've seen happen, like at the draft when players get asked if they're gay or if they –
That's right.
Like why teams are allowed to do that and why there's no repercussions. Well, the CBA doesn't protect the players from those issues.
Listen, and that's the crazy part. So this is always my thing, like facts versus the truth, right? And, you delivered all the facts, but there's no truth. There's no truth or no justice in your deliberation. That is some, oh my goodness. So I'm like, oh my goodness.
Well, that's where the layers come in, right? Because my protest was against oppression, and now I feel the effects of oppression. Right? And so now it's going to a different level, because now I realize the owners know and they see if the players come together on anything. Whether it's protesting against oppression. If they come together on that, how soon is it going to be before they come together on the CBA? Right? So now I see why Colin isn't in the league.
Absolutely.
All the talks about him not being able to perform in the NFL is completely garbage.
100%.
He was the face of the NFL.
Yeah, literally for like 2 years straight.
He was the golden boy of the NFL.
And I grew up a 49ers fan. It was great to see my dog shine.
My boy was out there kissing biceps every weekend. You know what I mean? Like he was doing.
They're running like a deer, man.
he was doing this thing. So it's crazy that all these people who say, he couldn't play anymore. It makes sense now. They had to get him out, because if he could get the players to come together, they were looking so far ahead of what I was even thinking. Right at the time, my little good heart was wanting to fight some oppression.
Hopeful. Full of hope.
And the owners were saying, hey, man, we got to stop this thing before they come after the CBA.
And like I said, that's the bittersweet experience that you have as a player in the National Football League, because there's a divide, but you couldn't be more invested into this sport. Like when we talk about what it takes to get to that level, play at that level, establish community amongst your people. And then, like I said, you meet some great coaches, some great relationships, some front office people, and then the bottom line.
that bottom line. And as a business owner, I get it. You know what I mean? Like you're not doing this for fun. I mean, I love the game, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And so I understood that very real aspect of it as well.
Absolutely.
And, as a business owner, I could see why anybody would want to protect their business.
They're protecting their interests. And this is what I tell people, from a leadership perspective, it's old. I call it like old guard leadership. I mean, like they it's more of a taking mentality than a giving mentality. And I think we're starting to see a new generation of leaders. I don't know about NFL owners, because it's a unique product, more or less. But there's an emerging generation of leaders that understand that they'll get more when they give. That when they actually, serve
invest in people,
invest in their people, they'll actually get the best out of their people.
Right.
And that's definitely not the NFL.
No, not
that's
at all.
That's definitely not the NFL. So tell me more about like your relationship with Colin, how it's been since then, because like I said, he is the face, and deservedly so in some respect. There's been the Netflix documentary, there's been everything, and you've been slow to kind of tell your story. I know, right here today, we're busting this exclusive and getting Eric Reid's story out. But tell me about the nature of relationship, because you've been pursuing God. You've been doing there's been an evolution since you've moved on in the last few years. Tell me the nature of that relationship.
Well, we're still very good friends.
Excellent.
Still very close. I am not so deeply involved in the activism culture anymore. Since I've transitioned out of the league, I've had the wonderful opportunity to spend way more time with my family.
Excellent.
And I'm loving every minute of it. Do I still want to play? Of course. I mean, that competitor is still deep down in me. But since transitioning out of the league, I'm loving being with my family. My pursuit of Christ is on fire, and I'm loving it.
He's a man on fire. That's why this my guy.
It's I think the Lord rewarded me in the way that He works, right? People often say that the Lord works in mysterious ways, and He really does. And I think He knew my heart when I started protesting, and He showed Himself to me in such a mighty way that I'm so grateful for, so thankful for, and I'm so at peace with everything that's happened in my life because it's brought me to Him.
Sure.
And so I couldn't be more pleased with how things have turned out. Yes, there's some regrets, things that. Yeah. Some things that I've said, some things that I've done that I wish I wouldn't have said to people, that I wish I wouldn't have done to people. But had I not protested, I don't think that I would be where I am today.
100%. Let me get into the last bit of ugly that I know of. Of course, the NFL creates the Players Coalition, And that was sticky. That was sticky. That's when you was at the height of probably some anger.
Yeah.
And you was at the height. You was in it. You was right in the fire.
Yeah.
So it seems like I guess your altercation might have been with Malcolm, but tell me what you can in relation to where the steam really picks up. What your thoughts was, why you felt like there needed to be a clear line drawn.
Yeah. So that started when, President Trump made his comments, right?
Sure.
And so now the league and the owners had a vested interest in stopping this protest, right? Because they were following suit with what the president had said.
Absolutely.
So the Roger Goodell organizes this meeting with, I believe it was 12 to 15 owners and players to discuss the issues that were causing players to protest, right? And I see this on Twitter. I'm not invited to this meeting. I said, that's interesting. Y'all are having a meeting.
So y'all get the party started, but y'all not invited to the exclusive.
Y'all want to talk to players about the reasons that's causing players to protest, but player 1 and player 2, Colin and Eric, don't get the invite.
Hey.
So I send a tweet out to Roger Goodell saying, I think it's interesting that I'm not invited to this meeting. And so naturally I get the invite after that. We get there, and it becomes very apparent that Malcolm Jenkins is the leader of the players. Like, he was going to be the voice of the players in this meeting. I thought that was interesting. Didn't know how that dynamic had taken place.
Sure.
So he asked in our little pre-meeting with the owners, it was just the players, what we were here for, what were we going to ask from the owners. And I'm thinking, again, this is kind of weird. I'm not protesting the NFL.
Sure.
But if they're bringing us here under the premise that they want to help us, I think it would be cool if, I don't know, spitballing here, every team donates $1 million for 10 years, right? Sure. 32 teams, $32 million, 10 years, that's $320 million going into the communities that your players come from. I think that's a good idea.
Sure.
Man, he laughed in my face in front of everybody, like straight up LOL in front of everybody.
Really? Whoa.
Straight like that. I was like, oh, okay. All right, that's how we doing.
Okay.
And so I felt some type of way about that. He's like, why would they do that? I'm like, why wouldn't they? Like, are you their representation or are you our representation? Like why are you negotiating on their behalf
right now?
So, man, we go into that meeting, and it becomes really apparent that this was a PR move, right? They wanted to say they had a meeting for the sake of having a meeting.
Sure.
And I'll give you the details. We spoke, again, pleasantries for about 2 hours. Nothing really happening. It's just song and dance. Roger Goodell starts the meeting off. He says that the issues of the black community are our issues. Right? Like, very civil rights era, like very civil rights, like Martin Luther King signing the Civil Rights Act of 1965. Yeah. It's time that America acknowledges that black issues are America's issues. I was like, okay, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
And so after 2 hours, Terry Pagula, the owner of the Bills, says, we need to do something about this protest because I've lost 2 sponsors for my hockey team. And he says, we need to put a Band-Aid on this, and we need a black face to do it.
Oh, snap. Woo. I mean, that's just facts.
And then he says, I think that Malcolm Jenkins and Anquan Bolden would be good candidates to do that. And now I'm like, now I see why we're here. We're not here to talk about the issues of the protest.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about the end of the protest, how to make it end.
Yep.
So now I see how this is all kind of playing out. And so I finally, after 2 hours, say, I think it's really interesting, Roger, that you opened this meeting saying that black issues are your issues, right?
Sure.
I said, so where were you when the entire country was saying that me and Colin were terrorists, when we were being villainized? Why were there crickets? You weren't saying anything.
Nothing.
You didn't come and support us. You didn't give us a statement of backup, nothing.
Man.
You know what his response was. And David, I kid you not.
Oh, man.
I think it's a good time to break for lunch.
Oh, snap. So just evaded this moment of truth.
I said, when are we going to talk about Colin? And why did y'all not back us up? Y'all left us out to dry. And he broke the meeting for lunch. We come back from lunch. They bring in their PR specialists,
sure,
their PR team, and say what they're going to do moving forward.
Sure.
About how they're going to donate X amount of money. One of the owners says, in a very sleazy way, we could give you more resources in your community than you can ever imagine. Y'all just got to stop protesting.
Oh my goodness.
Y'all just got to stop protesting.
Oh my goodness. You talking about, oh boy, you trying to buy somebody's value system.
Okay, now we're getting there because keep in mind, let's keep the context. This is about Malcolm, right? And like me regretfully approaching him the way I did on the football field.
Yeah.
So they roll out this whole PR campaign about how they're going to do commercials, and they did all that. You remember the end racism in the end zones, the stickers on the helmets.
I'm still working for the Giants. I'm dealing with my guys,
So that was their way to allocate money. But I give you one that's even better. At one point, they were talking about reallocating money from salute to service to this social justice initiative. And all of the guys were like in favor. I'm like, no, dude, like they're already saying that we hate the military. Why why would we take money from
the military?
From the military program for our program. It was solidify.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a lot. I mean, David, it was.
So we ain't got enough, millions out of the billions that's being made every year.
And so then if you recall, if you do the research, because it's out there, the NFL comes up with this $89 million package. And it really was a matching campaign. So there was no new money. The players had to donate money for the NFL to put money in. It was really unachievable. One stipulation was that 95% of the money raised had to be in the – well, first, we couldn't fundraise. I'm in Silicon Valley. I'm with the 49ers, right? Yeah. So I'm like – so I can hit up Apple. I can hit up Google to get X amount of dollars, and y'all going to match it. No, it needs to come out of the locker room. So now it's really just PR. Part of their package was that $25 million was going to be given for commercials, right? And you and I both know they're not spending $25 million. They value the spot of the commercial at $25 million. So they're actually not putting money into the community.
Oh boy,
they're doing PR spins.
Oh man, my league, my peeps, and I got so many people that I respect. And I still, like I said, I understand that everybody has their own agenda, right? Meaning, although it doesn't serve true justice, I understand that people have their own agenda. So I'm not going to demonize, but we know we're going to be on the right side of truth.
You told me that you wanted to help the community, but really all you're doing is appeasing the president. At the end of the day, you're
appeasing the president and appeasing the public.
Appeasing the public, your fan base. And I get it. You're running a business.
Yeah.
Right. And so, fast forward, and there's a lot more. The more we talk about it, the more will come out. But back to what happened with Malcolm.
Yeah.
The day comes. He calls me. He calls me on my phone. Right. And keep in mind, at this point, I was like, hey, man, I really think you should stop talking to the NFL on behalf of me, at least, because I didn't elect you to be my representation.
No doubt.
But anyway, he's negotiating with the owners. They start this players coalition.
Sure.
He calls me on my phone and he says, how much would it take for you to stop protesting? The NFL is ready to make a donation today. How much would it take for you to stop? And I'm like, this is not real life.
Oh man, this is like gooey.
So when you talk about sellouts, right? Because for a minute there, people started calling Colin and I sellouts because we settled a lawsuit.
Sure.
Which is it's a normal process.
It's a part of the process.
He actually called me and asked how much money it would take for me to stop protesting. And guess what the money was going? Where? To his nonprofit.
Hey man, hey, you from Jersey, Malcolm? I need better than that. You Piscataway Chief, dog. Oh man, that's heartbreaking.
I'm really like blown away at this, right? I'm like, dude, I'm not doing this, right? And so keep in mind that Malcolm nor any of the players at that meeting actually took a knee. I was the only person present that actually was taking a knee, and that's what they wanted to stop. So it was all organized. So when I got that call, I was like, I see now. It all makes sense.
Sure.
The NFL, along with Malcolm, they organized this coalition to make a deal.
Sure.
To get the protest to stop. Because after that, he goes out and he says publicly that I think it's time that we stop protesting.
Sheesh.
And
I thought he was still, locked arms team and the whole team.
He might have locked arms, but he wasn't on the knee, right? Which is what Trump wanted to stop.
Got it. I thought he was on, but maybe I'm wrong.
He was locked arms. He had a fist in the air, but he was not on that knee. And
Got it.
The owner of the Philadelphia Eagles approved his form of protesting. Like, he got approval from the team to raise his fist and to lock arms. What they didn't want was that knee.
Yeah.
And so he comes out after that and says, I think it's time that we stop protesting. That's how that went. And then, fast forward to the game, like you said, I'm probably at the peak of my anger.
Oh, no question. We about to bang out.
Yeah.
We about to.
It was not a good day for me.
Yeah.
I was very angry that day, and I'm grateful that it didn't get physical.
Any interaction, any conversation ever with Malcolm, just on a reconciliation tip?
No, not since then. No, there hasn't been. If I had the opportunity, I would apologize for approaching him because I instigated it. It was a coin toss. He was out there as a captain. I wasn't the captain. I walked out there.
Yeah.
And man, I'm grateful that he didn't do anything that would have made me do something.
Yeah.
That day, it would have went down.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, like I said, for me, it's obviously I know you. I don't know Malcolm. I have a great amount of respect for him as an individual and leader, and obviously I'm taking your words as gold in general, but, it's kind of one of those unfortunate, scenarios that play out in the human experience because, again, everybody has an agenda. Every agenda doesn't have to be evil for it to have an unjust end. That's kind of, as we mature in life, we kind of get it. Everybody's in it for what they're in it for. And, there's more righteous causes. There's more equitable causes that people like yourself, Colin, and many others in the past and into the future are continuing to fight for. So it's to be saluted, man. So tell me how this all comes together, because sometimes we don't like to talk about the supernatural. We don't like to talk about, we say God, what are we saying here? Yeah. So let the audience know how dynamic your arrival is and why you're connecting these dots in this way and your faith is so meaningful.
So in a very, very powerful way, God moved in my life. I mentioned that I had gotten cut and it sent me into a sad place, right? Like, I'm not.
Rightfully so.
And it wasn't one of those situations where, I had tailed off in my career and it was just time to hang them up. I had broken 2 records.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I've got a ton of football. I'm at the peak of my career, right? I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next year coming off of this 2 record-breaking season. That's crazy. And I get a phone call saying that I've been cut. And so, I'm upset, and I'm this whole range of emotions of being upset, of being angry, because I know this is the fruits of the protest, right? It's finally caught up to me, and they finally feel comfortable kicking me out.
No doubt.
So I remember being in my office and saying a very simple prayer, like, God, I did this for you, and I don't feel close to you at all. And it couldn't have been but a couple of days later, I go to work out because it's the off season and I'm training.
Sure.
And I get out of my car, my back just locks up on me. Like, it starts spasming. Like, will not let go. And if you've never had back spasms, good for you.
Listen, thank God. I never had them. I'm 42 and I still haven't had them. Like,
good for you.
Hold on.
Imagine a hamstring cramp. Like, you've had a
hamstring,
but in your back. And so you can't turn, you can't bend, you can't cough. Like, it just, everything hurts. And so I walk out onto the field to do this workout. And I'm thinking, it's I can work through this. You know what I mean? I'm going to warm up and it'll be fine.
Sure.
And so as I'm trying to warm up, I hear quality, not quantity. And so I'm thinking, dang, that's a great idea. I'm going to do some good quality reps. I'm not going to do too much quantity. I'm going to get in, get out, just get a nice little flow, get the blood flowing.
Sure.
Man, I couldn't put my cleats on. Like, it was bad.
Man.
So I called my massage therapist, who's Rochanel, who you mentioned. Mm-hmm. He had been massaging me for about a year, and he does great work. I mean, like, you get beat up.
You need to holler at him. RCF Unlimited, holler at him on the gram.
Look, man, like, I got through some games because of him. But I called him. I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry to hit you up like this, but I need a massage, like, today. Like, can you get me in today?
Yeah.
Because my back is doing, like, it's crazy right now.
Back, got one of them Spaceballs joints, just aliens running through your back.
Look, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it just would not let go. My back was so locked up. And so he agrees to come over, and I was very grateful. And we start talking about God. And he says, Eric, God is looking for a quality person, not a quantity of people. And I literally do this on the massage table, like, What did you just say to me?
People don't get it.
He said God is looking for a quality person, not a quantity of people. And it all made sense. I'm like, I heard God earlier today. Like he was speaking to me. He was letting me know that and then it made sense to me because the protest is on this big stage and you're talking to the masses, and that's where it gets to the nuance of this conversation where it's like I wasn't lying, I wasn't saying something wrong, but I wasn't reconciling anybody to God.
Yes, there we go.
No souls were being saved.
Yeah.
And he made me understand very clearly that he does not care to have a quantity of people. I mean, the scripture says he has a hill of 1,000 cows, cattle. Like
he owns it all.
He needs not, like he don't need my raggedy behind. Like, but if you have that quality, if that heart, he desires your heart, and man, it became so real. It made so much sense.
Wow.
And he had me. Like he captured my heart. And
so you go in your own mind. Here you are, years removed. You're in this to use your platform to glorify God, considering the broken, considering the oppressed, and lo and behold, God reaches back around and comes for you.
Oh man, I felt rewarded, and none of it mattered anymore. The fact that I'm not on the team, and obviously, it had very real repercussions, right? From providing from my family standpoint. But man, it came full circle because I started protesting for God.
Yeah.
And he came back and got me, because then I consider what happened throughout the journey of the protest.
That's right.
And how it started. I was in this pure place seeking God, trying to do what was right for him.
Absolutely.
And then, anger and pride came in. And,
yep.
I started doing things that weren't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, the work of Satan, right?
Yeah.
He manipulates you,
more
he deceives you. And
that's our adversary. We got to fight this fight.
Yeah. And so, I'm crushed.
Yeah.
That he pulled me out of it.
Bro, your life is not just as a moment. It became a movement because God moved on you. You served the oppressed. You became the oppressed. And God delivered the oppressed.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
By delivering you to himself. Boy, listen, I'm like otherworldly proud of you, proud to know you, proud to be a part of your life. And I can't thank you for just being who you are, consistent, man. You're intelligent, you're dynamic, you're an amazing man, amazing father. Your actions and even your motivations have brought, it's bringing healing. Like, it's brought healing. People have had to endure, whether they wanted to or not, conversation and dialogue that never would have existed if Colin didn't have his sentiments and you weren't a part of that. And let's remember, folks, it was his idea to take the knee. Nate Boyer, we appreciate your confirmation, but, that's the story that also needs to be told, because you were just as heroic in your mind and your heart and being a tremendous friend to Colin.
I appreciate that, David. And I could say the same for you, because I knew that there would be a time for my story to come out. I didn't do this seeking glory or seeking the attention or seeking the spotlight, which is why I've never done an interview of this nature.
No doubt.
But I knew there would be a time for my story, but at the same time, I knew the person who would deliver my story had to be a man of honor and faith, and who was going to do right with the story. And not bend it for their own agenda. And so whenever you asked me, I turned down this opportunity so many times. But because of who you are, I knew that this was going to be the way for me to tell my story. And I'm happy I was able to do that.
Man, y'all heard it here. This is exclusive. This is groundbreaking. This is what Catch the Moment is about. Meaningful people taking that journey to arrive at their destination. Eric Reid's on his way. But listen, man, the best is yet to come. Thank you for being a guest with us on Catch the Moment,
yes,
fam.
Yes, sir. Of course.
Listen, y'all need to stay tuned, locked, subscribe, YouTube, Apple. We're everywhere. You can find us. This is about life transformation. It's about getting you where you got to go. So make sure you tune in with Catch the Moment. Thank you.